I want to talk about, mostly it's about paradigm and the concept of who we are, where we are, why we're here, etc., and how it pertains to the science of astrological gems. And it's a fascinating subject that very few people will consider in their life, except for those who have that karmic resonance, that there are solutions to minimize their negative karma and improve their benign karma. So I got interested in this over 40 years ago because I read Autobiography of Yogi about 50 years ago. And in that book, Paramahansa Yogananda said some very, very profound things which were new concepts to my thinking. And because of his remarkable life and the obvious enlightenment that he had, I found his comments to create keen interest in me. And excuse the dog, wants to get in on the act. So obviously we all know that without electricity, we're dead. We leave the physical body. The physical body, which I often call the donkey, because that's what St. Francis used to call it, is not our real nature. It's an expression of our consciousness, but it's not our home. And that's why we have this temporary residence where we grow it until it's dead, again and again, until we learn our spiritual lessons. The electrical body, which is tied to the astral body, always has waveform. And waveform is like consciousness. It's like every thought has a frequency, every thought has a waveform radiating into our being that will manifest its return consequence, be it through action, deed, study, etc. And so, of course, the spiritual path is about studying the truths that are deeper to our nature than most people will naturally understand, because their thought processes haven't developed the understanding and gravity of their significance. I'm talking here in the environment with the ocean behind because I want the viewer to think far more in the concept of our planetary place, of our planetary relationship to the Earth, to the other planets in the solar system. And because we're in this finite body, we often, we live in a house, in a suburb, in a city. We don't even see the stars because they're, blotted out by electrical light, etc. And we forget our place is very much part of the cosmos. One of the great things about dying, when you study the thousands of reviews, or hundreds at least, that are on YouTube of people who clinically died and then came back into their body, the first thing they experience often is leaving the planet and going into these other spheres of habitation that are astral, stunningly beautiful, but nonetheless very related to the universe. They become far more identified with the grandeur, the majesty, the enormity of a universal experience. And when we're in the physical body, we forget about that. We forget about our evolutionary relationship to the universe. And in a sense, when you study the saints, they often identify, well, the universe is God in all its many manifestations, in its spiritual manifestation, physical, astral, causal, etc. And that's something that kind of is beaten out of us by some of the humdrum experiences that we have when our mind doesn't relate to our experiences correctly. Back on subject of how astrological gems and metals can have an enormous benefit to our life. We have to start with the foundational concept that Yogananda explained. And he said something very, very interesting. And, the word karma has become very popular in the last 20 years. Before that, it was very much a subcultural group that would think about karma, but now it's literally a word that's not invisible on Hollywood movie screens, etc. And Yogananda said that every man comes into the world, carries within a general chart of his life, the predestined details of which he fills in throughout his lifetime. The highways and some byways are already in the chart when he is born. These are traits he brings with him from previous incarnations. And a really big thing that he said is you were born with about 75% of your life predetermined by your past. Now, that's an outrageous statement. That's a total flip to how we view our destiny, how we view our thinking that our life is under our control. And essentially, what he's saying is that 75% of our life experience is karmic return. And how that mechanism occurs is what I want to dwell on, because this is a subject that I haven't heard anyone else talk about in depth, and except of course Yogananda. But what you have to remember is everything you do, say, think, is recorded vibratorily. Think of a vibration, think of a frequency, a radiation, an invisible force, an electromagnetic attraction. Everything you do, every good gesture, every bad action has a payback. You sow what you reap, as said in the Bible in Galatians. And that is the only way you can analyze if God is fair and compassionate and non-partisan, non-biased. Everybody lives under the same rules. And so if you're born without the greatest intelligence, perhaps you smoked a lot of Mary Jane in a past life. If you have fantastic health, perhaps you really loved athletics in a past life, soccer or some other cardiovascular exercise. You develop that ability. If you're born a brilliant musician, you've been a musician before. You've developed the intuitive insight and the channels of energy relating between your hands and your mind on how to intuitively play music. And nothing's willy-nilly, nothing's random, nothing's without fairness. And if you don't grasp that concept, it's very hard to understand that there is a supreme intelligence running the cosmos, that's omniscient, that's within everything, that has its laws. There has to be laws or rules. Just study science. There's always a cause and effect equilibrium. There's always a relationship. And that happens metaphysically. So how can a gemstone, an inert little colorful crystal, minimize or nullify your predestined negative karma? Well, I'll back the truck up a bit and explain. Yogananda explained everything you say, think, is recorded vibratorily in your chakras. Your chakras are like the motherboard of your astral body. When you die, those recordings in your chakras go with the astral body. When you're born, they come back at conception, when the spermatozoa penetrates the wall of the egg. There's a flash in the ether, as it were. And then your predestined life starts developing through the embryo to your birth, to your death. And it's tied up with all these recordings of your past actions. All of those recordings are electromagnetic, are vibratory, are frequency-based, and you can scientifically supplement those frequency recordings, just like you can supplement your diet. If you don't have a good capacity for absorbing vitamin D, or you're deficient in a certain mineral, or you can take it as a mineral supplement or vitamin supplement. It's the same with the frequency body. It's the same with the electrical body. When you have a tendency in your horoscope to not be able to integrate the benign radiations from a particular planet because of your lack of receptivity from your actions in a past life or even this life, you want to increase that resonance in your electrical body to absorb the benign radiations of every planet. And if you don't, then you're going to suffer the consequences of resonating to the more harmful radiations. Well, the person right next to you is thriving and not resonating to that at all. And so once you understand that all your karma is frequency based, waveform based, you can think about, well, how do I electromagnetically change my matrix of electrical frequency based resonance? Now, the fascinating thing about certain metals and certain gems touching the skin, which means interacting with the electrical body, is though they're very subtle, though they're not in the realm of our necessarily being able to obviously feel them, they shift the pattern of our interaction with planetary stimuli. And when you've done an action, say in the past life you're a couch potato and you really didn't exercise much. So in this life you come back, you've got a tendency to be a little bit more overweight, you don't have a fast metabolism, you definitely don't have good stamina. You want to imbue, you want to absorb a form of energy that is going to strengthen your ability to be more proactive, to be more active, to be more athletic. And it's just like, you know, maybe you've got a weak thyroid, that would be a symptom of, just for humor's sake, being a couch potato, you know, or of course there can be many other karmic reasons. But my point is this: you can supplement and strengthen your electrical body, which is waveform based, all electricity has frequency, to not resonate to the negative planetary stimulations, the radiations that pass through your body. The planets, Yogananda explained, have no interest in you. They don't care about your existence. However, we're part of the cosmos and we interact with all forms of energy. And if the planet is radiating a waveform based on the house it's sitting in, its conjunction maybe with another planet, and its radiations resonate to a vibratory recording in your chakras, there'll be a very strong tendency for that good or bad karma to manifest. Yogananda explained that the planets catalyze our karmic pattern. They have no interest in us, but there's this incredible rhyme and reason and harmony and rhythm to the cosmos that is always fair, always without bias. Now, of course, prayer is a very, very profound influencer to the cosmic pattern. Willpower, pranayama meditation, pujas, the blessings of a saint, fasting, wisdom applied life patterns like fasting or, you know, hatha yoga, etc., when applied correctly, will minimize the effects of negative karma. In fact, if you're, Yogananda explained, if you're very healthy with a strong mind and a strong physical disposition, some negative karma can come to your astral body. You're not necessarily aware of it because you've got this strong resilience. You're asbestos coated. So again, our life is greatly influenced by external waveforms interacting with the waveforms in our electrical body. And why does a gemstone work? How can a gemstone change your disposition from a negative scenario? Well, crystals are very, very unique, whether they're laboratory grown crystals or natural crystals. The more perfect, the better. The more deeply colored, the better. They have a unique internal geometrical structure where the electrons are in alignment. And the best example I can give of this is, think of a laser beam. You've got an incandescent light which can't cut through stainless steel. But if you get all the photons from that incandescent light, put them in a straight line, like a laser beam, you can cut through stainless steel. That shows the power of aligned energy. And so when you put a crystal with a certain waveform influence touching your skin, it can supplement your matrix of karmic electrical energy in your chakras, and you can prevent the resonation to the weaker planetary radiation. I studied astrology, as a lot of my friends have, and I like to put the concept that with the planets, we want to have strong planets. When a planet is exalted or in its house of rulership, it's because that person has the ability to integrate and absorb a strong degree of that planet's radiations. When the planet is debilitated or fallen or compromised by being combusted or some other way, you're not able to integrate and use the benign strength of that planet. And consequently, because we're not in a very high astrological age, there's obviously debate on this. I follow personally Swami Sri Teshwar's interpretation of the yugas. In Dwapara Yuga, it's a very weak age of astrological influence. It's much, much better than Kali Yuga, but it's much inferior to Treta and Satya Yuga. So even in Dwapara Yuga, even if you've got a really good chart, you've got several exalted planets, houses in rulership, you're still in Dwapara Yuga. You're still not getting the sufficient strength to uplift your spiritual potentiality. And Edgar Cayce had a great way of saying it. He likened the yugas to the Iron Age and the Brass Age and the Golden Age, Silver Age, Golden Age. And he said that in the Iron Age, the planetary radiations are very pastel in color. They're very weak. But in the Golden Age, they're very strong. People live much, much longer, have much less disease. Crops ripen very quickly. It's a very utopian environment that we live in. Well, obviously, we're not in utopia at the moment. We're not in the Golden Age. And so I look at the planets in that context. When somebody proudly says to me, oh, well, I've got a exalted Mercury, I go, well, okay, so if you read a 100-line poem, can you recite it the next day without looking at it? And they go, no. And I say, well, that's what Vivekananda did. And obviously he was a Mahatma, a master, an avatar. But my point is, we compare ourselves to other people. And so we're extremely off base about our potential. And gemstones change the trajectory of your karmic path. Once that planetary situation has moved on, that karmic return can never come back. Its predestined moment has passed. It's not lurking in the bushes waiting to get you when you're not wearing a bangle or something like that. And so the reason I'm enthusiastic about astrological bangles is they require no effort. You just wear them. They facilitate your effort. They encourage you by vibratory consciousness to pursue more sattvic, more uplifting pursuits. If you'd like to pursue the subject further and see how it can
influence your life beneficially, go to astrogems.com, fill out the free horoscope form to get a customized chart, which will also include the most beneficial gemstones to minimize your karma.